From the moment he stepped into the bustling office of Velocity Innovations, Nathan Brooks felt an exhilarating rush. He had spent years envisioning this day, dedicating countless hours to his studies and internships, tirelessly perfecting his resume. The company, renowned for its technological breakthroughs and youthful energy, stood as a beacon of hope in a competitive industry. For Nathan, it wasn't just a job. It was the culmination of relentless ambition and hard work, a dream job that seemed almost too good to be true. On his first day, Nathan wore his crisp blue dress shirt with pride, feeling like he belonged. The modern office layout buzzed with creativity. Colorful artwork adorned the walls, and collaborative spaces fostered innovation. He was welcomed by a diverse team of passionate individuals who were eager to share their expertise and insights. Each conversation felt like an invitation into a world where ideas flourished and possibilities were endless. Nathan was determined to make a mark in this vibrant environment, motivated by both the opportunity and responsibility that came with being part of such an influential company. His excitement was palpable as he settled into his new role as a junior project manager. He envisioned himself leading pioneering projects that would change the tech landscape. The thrill of contributing to groundbreaking initiatives filled him with purpose. Nathan's aspirations were fueled not only by personal ambition but by the desire to impact society positively through technology, creating solutions that would simplify lives and enhance communication. As days turned into weeks, Nathan immersed himself in projects that resonated with his values. He found himself collaborating on sustainable tech initiatives that aligned perfectly with his vision for a better future. Team brainstorming sessions brought out everyone's creativity. Their ideas morphed from rough sketches into well-thought-out proposals ready for presentation. Every small success ignited Nathan's passion further. He thrived on the collective energy of his coworkers who shared similar dreams. However, beneath the surface of enthusiasm lay an undercurrent that stirred in Nathan's mind. Whispers among colleagues about troubling practices and unresolved issues within the company began to seep into conversations. Initially dismissing these comments as mere grumbling from dissatisfied employees, Nathan focused on maintaining his positive outlook. He believed in the company's mission and felt proud to play a part in its trajectory. Yet, even as he celebrated victories during team meetings or received praise from senior management for his contributions, Nathan couldn't shake the unease growing within him. A brief encounter with an older colleague, someone who had spent years at Velocity, left him unsettled. During a casual coffee break in one of the lounge areas, she had mentioned offhandedly how things weren't always what they seemed at Velocity Innovations. The comment lingered in Nathan's mind like an unfinished puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Determined not to let negativity cloud his experience, he pressed forward with enthusiasm but couldn't ignore the subtle changes around him. The apprehensive glances exchanged between coworkers when sensitive topics arose or hushed conversations that quieted upon his approach. Despite all this, he told himself he was living his dream. It was easy to brush aside unease when surrounded by so much promise. Nathan's passion for innovation kept him grounded during these moments of doubt. He poured himself into projects that mattered deeply to him, contributing ideas inspired by sustainable technology and finding joy in collaborative efforts to change the world through digital solutions. Yet, as much as he loved what he did, nagging questions about transparency and ethics weighed heavily on his conscience. Little did he know that this journey would soon take an unexpected turn. There were storm clouds on the horizon prepared to challenge everything he had come to believe about his dream job. The atmosphere at Velocity Innovations was intoxicating, a perfect blend of ambition and creativity that Nathan found refreshing. Bright open spaces flooded with natural light presented an inviting landscape where ideas seemed to dance in the air. The walls were adorned with vibrant murals that depicted the company's ethos: innovation, collaboration, and progress. It was all designed to stimulate creativity and inspire action, a far cry from the sterile cubicles and drab environments he'd encountered in previous internships. Nathan's first week unfolded like a montage of joyful introductions and impromptu brainstorming sessions. Colleagues greeted him with warm smiles, eager to share their excitement about ongoing projects. The pulse of the office echoed with animated discussions, punctuated by bursts of laughter as teams gathered around tables strewn with laptops and sketches. He felt welcomed into this tight-knit community of passionate individuals who genuinely cared about pushing boundaries, and it fired him up like nothing else had before. As he attended orientation sessions, it became clear that Velocity placed immense value on fresh ideas, regardless of tenure or position. Nathan was particularly drawn to the philosophy that everyone's voice mattered. Even interns were encouraged to contribute to discussions about upcoming product launches or marketing strategies. This ethos fueled templated think tanks, where employees would gather on Fridays to explore everything from digital sustainability initiatives to innovative uses for artificial intelligence. Witnessing fellow team members passionately advocate for their proposals was exhilarating. Nathan knew he wanted to be part of such transformative dialogue. Empowered by this culture, Nathan launched headfirst into his projects, aligning himself with established teams working on cutting-edge technologies in renewable energy solutions. His enthusiasm was contagious. He approached every task with vigor and idealism, taking pride in using tech as a force for good. From designing project timelines to collaborating across departments, Nathan thrived amid the collaborative spirit that Velocity harbored like a badge of honor. Lunch breaks transformed into opportunities for networking and knowledge sharing, as employees gathered in the sleek break room adorned with plants and artisanal snacks. Conversations flowed easily over shared meals. Discussions ranged from industry trends to personal anecdotes, and sometimes even poetry readings initiated by a particularly inspired software developer. These interactions solidified the familial bonds among coworkers, reinforcing Nathan's sense of belonging. Despite being new, Nathan quickly established rapport with various teams through his enthusiastic participation during brainstorming sessions. He regularly joined collaborative efforts where departments convened to tackle overarching goals set forth by leadership. This cross-pollination of ideas left him exhilarated. Every day felt like a masterclass filled with insights from experienced hands forging paths for the future. Yet within this flourishing environment lingered a shadow that Nathan struggled not to notice. The occasional muffled conversations he overheard while refilling his coffee or passing through communal areas sparked an unsettling curiosity. Remarks made in hushed tones raised questions about certain projects that felt more complex than initially presented. Coworkers exchanged wary glances over lunch when speculation turned to apprehension about transparency in some departmental outcomes. Comments conveniently swept aside amidst the joyful camaraderie. For now, though, Nathan remained enthralled by the momentum building around him. Enthusiasm propelled him deeper into his role as expectations soared high. He envisioned crafting solutions alongside innovators poised for greatness. The potential for groundbreaking change focused solely on bettering society radiated through every corner of Velocity Innovations. In team meetings overflowing with creativity and optimism, Nathan couldn't shake moments of unrest regarding whispers he'd caught among colleagues' conversations. It felt trivial at first but gnawed at him just enough to plant seeds of doubt regarding things unseen beneath their harmonious facade. Those reservations quietly loomed like storm clouds ready to shift the atmosphere at any moment even while he basked in the sunlit glow of what he believed was a dream realized. Prepared for challenges ahead, unbeknownst yet desperately hoping they'd remain serendipitous rather than sinister. As Nathan settled deeper into his role at Velocity Innovations, excitement gradually gave way to a gnawing sense of unease. While the vibrant atmosphere had initially filled him with hope, subtle hints of discontent began to emerge from the shadows, creeping into conversations and interactions he observed every day. What had once seemed like an unblemished paradise now bore faint cracks, hinting at complexities beneath the surface. During a team meeting focused on a highly anticipated project launch, Nathan noticed the tension in the air. As ideas flowed freely from most team members, one particular veteran employee sat quietly in the back corner, a distant look in his eyes. When Nathan later approached him for insights about an innovative aspect of the project, the older man's response was carefully measured, almost cryptic. "Just make sure you don't ask too many questions," he said, casting a wary glance around before quickly changing the subject. The odd comment hung in the air like an unresolved riddle, making Nathan question his understanding of what truly lay behind their ambitious facade. Days passed, and small discrepancies started to reveal themselves in project reports and data that should have been straightforward. During one routine update meeting, Nathan cross-referenced figures related to their renewable energy project and noticed inconsistencies between various presentations. While some reports indicated positive progress towards sustainability goals, others painted a starkly different picture, one that raised alarms about operational realities that didn't align with corporate messaging. These anomalies flickered through his mind like warning lights as he considered digging deeper into the discrepancies. His instincts heightened further when he stumbled upon hushed discussions among coworkers during lunch breaks. In one instance, two colleagues were engrossed in conversation about budget allocations. Their voices lowered when Nathan approached. He caught snippets about missing funds and tightened controls, but turned away quickly enough to pretend he hadn't overheard anything suspicious. Their furtive glances conveyed a shared burden, a silent understanding that whatever they discussed was not meant for newcomers like him. Feeling increasingly perplexed, Nathan turned to online forums dedicated to industry news, where he sought insight on broader trends affecting companies, similar to Velocity Innovations. What he found shocked him. Whispers of ethical concerns and legal inquiries surrounding other tech firms involved in similar sectors. With each article he read, a chilling realization settled within him. If such issues festered elsewhere in the industry, could they be lurking within Velocity as well? Tension escalated during team collaborations where Nathan felt like a budding outsider trying to connect dots while existing loyalties dampened open communication. When discussing performance metrics on renewable energy initiatives at another meeting, a manager smiled brightly while glossing over critical aspects that Nathan found troubling. Aiming to contribute constructively, he raised a hand to address his findings regarding inconsistent data, but sensed an immediate chill, a collective shift in attitude toward his input that sent anxiety racing through him. Even casual coffee breaks transformed into sources of discomfort. Small talk among colleagues felt increasingly strained as whispers faded around him whenever he entered their orbit. Perhaps it was paranoia. He questioned himself repeatedly, but instinctively, Nathan sensed an underlying tide against transparency that stirred beneath Velocity's polished exterior. Determined not to dismiss his feelings as mere anxiety or impatience typical of any new employee adjusting to corporate dynamics, Nathan decided it was time for quiet observation rather than action. He would remain vigilant, connecting seemingly unrelated threads while trying not to alert those around him or draw attention to himself unnecessarily. The culmination of these experiences weighed heavily on his conscience. Could integrity withstand challenges thrown at such idealism? As momentum built for significant projects scheduled for rollout soon after the new year, Nathan's anticipation shifted from excitement into cautious skepticism. A storm brewed on the horizon. Questions became more frequent as discoveries surfaced deep within what had initially appeared to be an unwavering commitment to innovation and progress. Ultimately, how much harder would he have to dig before unraveling unsettling truths, hidden beneath layers of bright murals and enthusiastic laughter? As the days turned into weeks at Velocity Innovations, Nathan found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions that left him feeling disoriented. On one hand, he relished the excitement of his dream job, a role that allowed him to contribute to innovative projects and collaborate with brilliant minds. The thrill of being part of a team dedicated to pushing technological boundaries fueled his passion for work. Yet, as the unsettling signs continued to accumulate, an internal conflict began to churn within him, forcing him to confront a dilemma he never anticipated. Nathan often reminisced about the journey that led him to this moment. The late nights spent studying, the countless interviews he had navigated, and the elation he felt when he received the offer from Velocity. Each time he logged onto his company portal or received praise from his supervisors, a surge of pride washed over him. He envisioned himself as part of a movement that could change the world through technology, crafting solutions that would help society at large. But with each passing day, that vision became increasingly clouded by doubts that crept into his mind like an unwelcome guest. The camaraderie that once filled the office seemed to shift slightly, tinged with an undercurrent of anxiety that Nathan couldn't ignore. Conversations shifted from open discussions about creative projects to hushed tones laden with caution, an atmosphere that felt more like a high-stakes game than collaborative innovation. He found himself grappling with two contrasting feelings. the exhilaration from engaging in groundbreaking work and the growing concern about what lay beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect organization. One afternoon, while working on a detailed analysis for a major project proposal, Nathan stumbled upon figures that didn't align with previous reports. The discrepancies were small but troubling enough to merit further investigation. He could feel the familiar tug-of-war in his mind. Should he raise these concerns with his manager or simply chalk it up to data entry errors? Would voicing his suspicions jeopardize his standing within the company or tarnish relationships he'd worked hard to build? The thought of sacrificing his position at Velocity for principles he had always held dear sent waves of apprehension coursing through him. During lunch breaks, he often found himself torn between wanting to engage with colleagues and fearing what their responses might reveal. A part of him longed for companionship. He missed the carefree banter about weekend plans or project triumphs. But another part hesitated, aware that discussions might drift toward those troubling whispers he had overheard. How could he enjoy moments of lightheartedness when shadows loomed just beneath their laughter? Gradually, Nathan became more introspective, weighing the potential consequences of speaking out against what he now perceived as a growing culture of secrecy. It would be easy to bury his head in tasks and let complacency guide him through his career. Yet there was a nagging voice in the back of his mind, a reminder of the values that motivated him to pursue this path in the first place: integrity, honesty, and a commitment to ethical practices. In quiet moments away from work, Nathan began researching corporate ethics within tech industries. He discovered stories of others who had faced similar dilemmas, individuals who chose either to remain silent or expose wrongdoing at significant personal cost. Each story resonated with him deeply. Their moral courage sparked a fire within him that clashed fiercely with his instinct for self-preservation. Nathan's internal battle grew more intense as he realized he could no longer keep these thoughts at bay. The joy of working at Velocity Innovations was being overshadowed by uncertainty and fear, emotions that threatened to stifle his creativity and passion for innovation. He understood that forging ahead without acknowledging these ethical concerns would not only compromise his integrity but also betray everything he stood for. With each passing day, Nathan questioned whether loyalty to an organization was worth sacrificing his ideals. The vibrant murals and laughter in the office were no longer enough to drown out the dissonance echoing in his heart. As he confronted this pivotal moment in his career, Nathan knew one thing for certain: the journey ahead would demand courage. Courage not just to embrace opportunities but also to face uncomfortable truths lurking just beneath the surface of his dream job. As Nathan navigated the complexities of his roles at Velocity Innovations, he encountered a diverse cast of characters whose influence shaped his perspective on the challenges he faced. Each person embodied a different facet of the company's culture, oscillating between encouragement and caution, igniting both his ambitions and his suspicions. One of those pivotal figures was Clara Sanchez, a seasoned project manager known for her sharp intellect and unwavering commitment to ethical practices. With years of experience at Velocity, she had earned the respect of her peers and gained insight into the intricacies of company operations. Nathan started seeking her out during coffee breaks, drawn not only to her wealth of knowledge but also to her candid nature. Clara often spoke passionately about the importance of integrity in technology and would emphasize that their work had real-world implications beyond numbers and reports. "Remember," she once told him during an afternoon brainstorming session, "if we lose sight of our mission, improving lives using technology, we lose everything that makes our work meaningful." Her words resonated deeply with Nathan, reinforcing his own convictions about the role principles ought to play in any organization. Yet, beneath her inspiring facade lay an aura of wariness. Nathan observed subtle signs that indicated she had seen enough to be cautious about vocalizing dissent. In contrast, there was Max LeBlanc, a charismatic marketer with a knack for charming clients and cementing business relationships. He was often seen as the life of any gathering, his laughter infectious while promising dynamic pitches brought in numerous accolades for the team. Max was adept at finding shortcuts around processes he deemed unnecessary, encouraging Nathan to focus on results over protocols. "Why fuss about fine print when the goal is clear?" he would insist, dismissing protocol with a wave of his hand. While Nathan found Max's energy invigorating at times, It also presented a temptation to disregard critical details amid the exhilarating machinery driving their work environment. "Trust me," Max chided lightly one day as they sat reviewing marketing materials. "The best innovations come from bold moves, not from checking every box." This playful disregard for cautious practice nagged at Nathan's conscience during moments when he considered various discrepancies. He wondered if Max truly understood how thinly stretched trust could become. As Nathan grew more sensitive to whispers of discontent among colleagues, he also crossed paths with Zoe Chun, a junior developer who had made waves within her team for questioning code quality issues publicly. She epitomized that rare breed willing to confront systemic problems even at personal risk. However, her tenacity had earned her a reputation for being difficult or overly confrontational among some senior staffers. Zoe became an unexpected ally for Nathan as they found common ground over lunch one day, discussing project failures quietly acknowledged but not publicly addressed. After confiding his concerns regarding discrepancies he observed within their reporting structures, Zoe looked directly into his eyes and urged him, "We have a responsibility, for ourselves and each other, to bring these things into light." Her sincerity echoed loudly in Nathan's mind. She wasn't just advocating for herself but championing accountability in a way that challenged the status quo. Receiving encouragement from Clara combined with Zoe's boldness infused Nathan with newfound resolve, but it came at a cost. With each conversation filled with conflicting messages regarding ethics and loyalty against an undercurrent suggesting silence was better for career advancement, Nathan began doubting whom truly deserved his trust. Max's easy charm held a powerful allure compared to Zoe's raw determination. Amidst it all lay Clara's steady influence, reminding him why they were there. Gradually, as he pieced together varied perspectives provided by these key players shaping his environment, Nathan realized that collective awareness could either empower or inhibit him in confronting ethical dilemmas ahead. The path unraveling before him required more than passive observation. It would demand active participation within a culture attempting to reconcile ambition with values aligned towards greater purposes. Simultaneously attracted yet deterred by each character's approach pushed Nathan closer toward introspection. It was no longer solely about finding clarity regarding Velocity innovations. It became crucial for him as well to align himself internally among those vying for similar goals, while recognizing where potential disparities might lie hidden beneath layers cloaked in ambition or charm. Each interaction chipped away at moments where uncertainty clashed against longing. A yearning for purpose beyond mere corporate accolades intertwined tightly, leading him deeper into choosing whether preserving silence outweighed standing firm against ill-defined morals clouded by motives masqueraded under bright bravado or ingeniously woven narratives cascading from polished fronts elevating their names into worthiness without ever addressing truth behind it all. As Nathan's unease deepened, he became increasingly attuned to the subtle but pervasive attempts to obscure troubling realities at Velocity Innovations. The vibrant energy that once inspired him now felt tainted as he discovered documented incidents that hinted at a troubling pattern. A systemic effort to silence dissent and mislead public perception. One fateful afternoon, Nathan stumbled upon an internal memo while researching for a project. Initially intended for just a select group of executives, the document outlined strategies for managing potential backlash following a series of negative media articles about the company's previous product launches. The language was cold and calculated, an alarming contrast to the company's professed values of innovation and transparency. Phrases like "manage the narrative" and "control the messaging" leaped off the page, sending chills down his spine. It was evident that rather than addressing legitimate concerns raised by industry analysts and customers, Velocity was focused on crafting a facade of success while ignoring its pitfalls. Nathan's heart raced as he took in the implications of what he had found. This wasn't just an isolated incident. It suggested a pervasive culture of manipulation where maintaining appearances took precedence over accountability. He couldn't shake the feeling that this memo was merely the tip of an iceberg hiding far more insidious practices beneath its surface. Later that week, during a team meeting focused on refining their latest project presentation, Nathan witnessed firsthand how dissenting voices were marginalized within their own ranks. Zoe spoke up about discrepancies she'd noticed in product testing results, issues that should have been addressed but were swept aside with dismissive comments from management. The atmosphere shifted palpably, Her courage to voice concerns drew uncomfortable glances from her peers, who clearly preferred to avoid confrontation. "Let's focus on selling this product," interjected Max with a grin that felt hollow, undermining Zoe's valid points while reiterating their goal of generating buzz without truly scrutinizing performance metrics. The tension lingered in the air long after the meeting concluded, leaving Nathan torn between wanting to support Zoe and fearing repercussions for doing so. Was it worth aligning with someone who had already drawn scrutiny? After all, maintaining his position at Velocity relied largely on being seen as agreeable and compliant. Yet Clara's earlier words echoed in his mind. Integrity should guide action even when silence seems safer. In his pursuit for clarity amidst chaos, Nathan decided it was time to dig deeper into past incidents involving similar cover-ups at Velocity Innovations. He turned to online forums and industry reports where whistleblowers often shared their stories under anonymity. They detailed experiences eerily similar to what Nathan encountered within his own workplace. Employees had been coerced into silence following less-than-stellar product launches or negative customer feedback, many choosing self-preservation over speaking out against potentially harmful practices. Armed with this new knowledge, Nathan revisited conversations with Clara and Zoe over coffee breaks, probing them further about such practices within Velocity. Clara's demeanor shifted when approached with questions about corporate ethics. Her eyes grew serious as she acknowledged a realization she had long come to terms with, that voicing dissent often led to personal cost rather than change. "It's frustrating," Clara admitted one afternoon, her voice low as if afraid someone might overhear them discussing sensitive matters openly. "Too many people are wrapped up in preserving their careers rather than advocating for what's right. I've seen others crush dissenting voices before." Her candidness resonated deeply with Nathan. He understood now why she balanced encouragement with caution. She knew firsthand how difficult it was to challenge an entrenched culture. With growing resolve strengthening his convictions, Nathan felt compelled to document his observations carefully over the next few weeks, making note of conversations laden with concern indicating deeper issues yet unaddressed by management. He kept a private journal cataloging everything from conversations overheard at lunch breaks to quiet moments exchanged between colleagues veering between enthusiasm and apprehension. But alongside this newfound determination came weighty fears. Would exposing these truths jeopardize not only his career, but also those around him who had bravely spoken out? As Nathan wrestled with these conflicting emotions, intent on uncovering hidden truths versus wanting nothing more than the security that came with compliance, the reality solidified. Standing up against misconduct was never easy when facing powerful forces embedded within corporate frameworks. Ultimately, he realized this journey would necessitate careful navigation through treacherous waters where loyalty tore at principles instilled deep within him, and shed light not only upon company secrecy but also upon himself and those willing enough to confront uncomfortable realities lurking behind layers of polished facades obscuring ethical integrity. As the weight of his discoveries pressed down on him, Nathan found himself in a tortuous decision-making process, teetering on the edge between conformity and accountability. The vibrant dream job he once relished began morphing into a battleground for his morals. He spent countless nights lying awake, wrestling with thoughts swirling around his mind like a tempest, contemplating the implications of remaining at Velocity Innovations versus taking a stand against its troubling practices. In hushed moments with himself, Nathan ran through various scenarios, playing out every possible outcome in vivid detail. He imagined what would happen if he chose to speak up. Would he draw attention to the discrepancies he unearthed and risk ostracizing himself among colleagues? Clara's voice resounded in his memory. Integrity should guide action even when silence seems safer. Her words sparked both inspiration and fear. Could he truly maintain his principles in such a high-stakes environment? At times, surrendering to complacency felt enticing. The allure of working on groundbreaking projects alongside talented individuals was hard to resist. As new product launches approached, the excitement in the office bubbled over, creating an intoxicating atmosphere that confused Nathan's instincts. Should he simply enjoy the success and detach himself from the moral quandaries that plagued his conscience? It was a tempting thought, but each time he considered compromise, an unsettling churn within his gut reminded him that denying truth would come at too high a cost. The contrasting influences of Clara, Max, and Zoe weighed heavily on him as well. Clara represented integrity and ethical perseverance, embodying the resistance to the culture of silence. Yet she also depicted the potential consequences. A career tethered by cautious diplomacy, poised on the edge of discontent. In stark contrast, Max's charismatic approach dazzled those around him. He embodied the seductive pull of success achieved without questioning methods or outcomes, presenting a life devoid of conflict but filled with superficial triumphs. Each time Nathan interacted with Max, he felt the pressure to embrace shortcuts, but sensed an undercurrent warning him about seductive illusions. Then there was Zoe, the bold trailblazer willing to challenge status quo despite glaring risks. She reminded Nathan that real progress often demanded courage and discomfort, and that living authentically meant confronting inconvenient truths rather than burying one's head in the sand. He had seen firsthand how her willingness to speak up alienated her from others who preferred the path of least resistance. Squaring her courage against his growing apprehensiveness filled him with admiration and dread. Could he muster that same kind of bravery? Nathan found himself replaying conversations with Zoe late into the night. Her passionate pleas for accountability resonated deeply with him, amplifying his own frustrations but forcing him to acknowledge the stagnation so prevalent among his peers. Each interaction layered more complexity over his growing conviction that something had to be done. He sensed that living with integrity would demand risk, not just for himself but potentially for others who dared to join him. Yet even as resolve danced tantalizingly before him, formidable fears clawed at his resolve. What if he were wrong? What if he misinterpreted signals or found only backlash awaiting him? The stakes were high. In exposing potential misconduct, he risked not only his job, but also the delicate balance between friendships forged in professional settings and loyalty to deeper principles threatening to erupt like boiling lava. He tried envisioning life outside Velocity, demanding but honest work, reinforcing values over success rooted solely in reputation, standing by convictions rather than indulging convenient ignorance. But managing uncertainty about outcomes raised doubts. Who would stand beside him? Would coworkers rally behind truth, defensively bracing against chaos, or retreat back into silence? With time slipping away while internal battles raged fiercely within him, Nathan recognized he stood at an impasse. This was no longer merely about career growth or job security, but about aligning his choices with personal ideals that ran deeper than surface appearances dictated by enticing corporate narratives. A decision loomed ahead. Would he take a stand and forge a challenging path toward truth, or stay cocooned in comfort longing for absolution nudged on by fears both real and imagined? There was no easy way forward. Yet confronted with shadows lurking within himself and those shaping his surroundings, Nathan knew one must grapple with choices wrapped tightly in both danger and necessity, illustrating beautifully how honor could illuminate one's purpose in a landscape obscured by secrets threatening to suffocate authenticity. The air in the conference room felt thick with tension as Nathan sat at the long table, flanked by his colleagues and staring down management's top brass. His heart raced, pounding a relentless rhythm against his chest. This was the moment he had anticipated with both trepidation and resolve. It had taken weeks of sleepless nights and thoughtful deliberation, but he was finally ready to confront the issues plaguing Velocity Innovations. Nathan cleared his throat, feeling suddenly parched as he prepared to voice his concerns about the discrepancies he'd uncovered. Clara's supportive nod earlier that day replayed in his mind, a brief reminder that standing up for what was right mattered more than maintaining silence for the sake of comfort. The stakes were high, and he could sense it in the collective unease of his colleagues seated around him. "Thank you all for joining us," began Greg, the company's CEO, a polished man whose presence commanded attention. "Today, we'll discuss our upcoming product launch and the positive trajectory our latest initiatives have taken." As Greg launched into an impressive sales pitch filled with buzzwords and multicolored graphs, Nathan felt his stomach churn. Those visuals painted a picture that fundamentally contradicted the reality he had been observing, a reality filled with missing funds and overlooked quality issues that others were too afraid to address. With each confident statistic cited by Greg, Nathan felt an urgency building inside him. Finally, seizing a moment when Greg finished a particularly flashy slide showcasing projected profits, Nathan interjected. "Actually, If I could point out some concerns regarding our data integrity? The words spilled from his lips like a river breaking free from a dam, fueled by an amalgamation of fear and determination. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Colleagues exchanged wary glances as Greg's smile faltered slightly. Concerns? Let's not detract from our growth story here, he replied smoothly, attempting to steer back into familiar territory. But Nathan pressed on, each word weighing heavier than the last. I've noticed discrepancies in recent reports, especially concerning our product testing outcomes. There seem to be anomalies that aren't aligning with our marketing numbers. A murmur rippled through the room as several heads turned sharply toward him. Zoe, seated opposite him, offered an encouraging but anxious grin. Her eyes flickered with caution as if to say what Nathan had done could not be undone. Meanwhile, Max shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his earlier charisma dimming in response to Nathan's brazen candor. Greg's demeanor hardened. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Those reports are preliminary drafts meant for internal review only, he asserted defensively. We don't need to worry about outside scrutiny when we're poised for success. Surely, we owe it to ourselves and our customers to acknowledge these issues rather than bury them. Nathan countered, emboldened by Zoe's supportive presence and Clara's earlier encouragement. Moving forward without addressing these discrepancies isn't just reckless. It undermines our core commitment to integrity. In that moment, Nathan realized he was not just defending those discrepancies but also advocating for himself and every employee who had been complicit in maintaining silence out of fear. He caught Clara's approving nod from the corner of his eye. Encouragement shone on her face even amidst this escalating confrontation. However, it didn't take long for the tension to escalate further. Nathan, Greg interjected harshly, your willingness to challenge the narrative is noted, but let's be cautious here. You're jeopardizing your place within this team. The weight of Greg's threat hung heavy in the air like leaden fog. Nathan felt a cold wave of fear wash over him. The chilling reality that voicing even justified concerns could come at a price he hadn't fully grasped until that very moment. Are you really willing to sacrifice your career over fear-mongering about unfounded data? Max added, crossing his arms defensively while casting Nathan an incredulous glance. For a heartbeat longer than seemed reasonable, silence reigned in the room before Zoe broke it with firm resolve. It's not fear-mongering if it's based on facts. Her voice rang clear and unwavering as she redirected attention back toward Nathan. Taking a deep breath, Nathan pushed past his apprehension. He felt adrenaline coursing through his veins, a potent mixture of fear and conviction energizing him. I understand this might not be easy to hear, he continued resolutely, but fostering transparency and accountability is essential for our future. As discussions erupted around him, half supporting him while others rallied behind management, Nathan couldn't shake the sense that he was standing at a pivotal crossroads. Torn between camaraderie and ethical responsibility, he knew things would never return to how they once were after today. The confrontation opened a floodgate. Debates regarding ethics flickered alive across conference tables like wildfire. Some defended the status quo while others drummed up courage in support of change. Yet every moment spent navigating these turbulent waters solidified something pivotal within Nathan. Standing firm against misconduct, even when faced with backlash, was worth any potential fallout. Little did he know how far-reaching these consequences would extend beyond this meeting. Today marked not just a confrontation but the beginning of an uphill battle fraught with personal and professional repercussions yet to come. In the days following Nathan's bold confrontation with management, the atmosphere at Velocity Innovations shifted dramatically. Tension hung thick in the air, not just within the conference room where debates had erupted, but throughout the entire office. Whispers filled the hallways, and furtive glances exchanged over desks hinted at a burgeoning storm. Nathan could feel it. Change was on the horizon, and while he had taken a significant step toward transparency, he hadn't fully grasped how profound the repercussions would be. Feeling the weight of his decision settle around him like an anchor, Nathan poured himself into work to distract from his anxiety. He immersed himself in project details and data analysis, working late nights in hopes of regaining a sense of normalcy. Yet, every time he opened his laptop, He was reminded of what resided beneath that veneer of productivity. Questions about ethics, accountability, and his own professional integrity. It gnawed at him incessantly. Then came the tipping point. One late afternoon, as Nathan reviewed a particularly complex project report, he received an email that sent shockwaves through his system. It was from Zoe, and her usually upbeat tone was replaced by urgency. She requested a meeting immediately, her words laced with apprehension. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he realized this might pertain to the troubling issues they had both witnessed together. When they met in a quiet corner of the office, Zoe's expression bore more seriousness than he had ever observed. "Nathan," she began tentatively, "I found something I think you need to see." She handed him a folder, her hands trembling slightly. Inside were documents detailing product testing results that had been buried or edited to misrepresent the truth. Significantly higher failure rates than publicly reported, discrepancies in quality assurance logs that suggested systemic cover-ups. "This is worse than we thought," she murmured as Nathan flipped through page after page of damning evidence. A deep sense of dread filled the pit of his stomach. The company wasn't just manipulating figures to maintain its image. They were potentially endangering customers by pushing out products that didn't meet safety standards. As he processed this revelation, memories of Clara's wise words echoed in his mind. Integrity should guide action even when silence seems safer. The truth hit him hard. He couldn't stand by any longer, not with this new information weighing heavily on his conscience. The stakes had risen dramatically. This was no longer merely about internal discrepancies or professional disagreements, but potentially dangerous practices impacting consumers directly. "Zoe," Nathan said firmly as he looked up from the documents, adrenaline surging through him once again. "We need to report this." But Zoe's face fell. Fear washed over her features. "What if they retaliate? We've both seen how management reacts to dissent." Her voice quivered slightly. It was clear she felt the immense risk they faced. "We can't let fear dictate our actions," Nathan replied passionately, emboldened by their shared commitment to integrity. "This is bigger than us. If we don't do something now, we'd be complicit in their dishonesty, and that's not who we are." Zoe hesitated but eventually nodded, eyes blazing with determination, yet tinged with uncertainty. "Okay," she agreed quietly but swiftly. There was an underlying steeliness in her voice as she realized the weight of their responsibility. They spent hours crafting an anonymous report detailing their findings alongside their testimonies. Each line tempered with fears about possible repercussions, yet fueled by a powerful sense of purpose. With each keystroke into that digital document, Nathan felt an uplifting clarity emerge from the chaos clouding his mind since confronting management days ago. Standing for what is right often demands courage and willful defiance against wrongdoings. Once submitted through secure channels designed for whistleblowers within corporate structures, Nathan felt a mix of relief and trepidation wash over him. He had crossed a threshold. There was no turning back now. In the days that followed, word spread around Velocity about an anonymous complaint lodged against management concerning product quality discrepancies. A buzz enveloped the office reminiscent of ripping fabric threads pulling tight across a seam. The tension morphed into palpable anxiety. Meetings were called hastily, without warning, as management sought to quell unrest sparked by their own failings. Nathan noticed Clara observing him with newfound respect as she pieced together the gravity of what had unfolded. Zoe became a steadfast ally amidst rising tensions among peers as whispers began circulating about who might have been behind the report. Those who remained loyal to the status quo edged away while others rallied. Whistleblowers emerging from shadows like moths drawn toward light, searching for justice cloaked beneath layers of deception. It was no longer solely Nathan's fight, but one shared collectively. A movement ignited within Velocity Innovations, pushing back against complacency birthed from fear and ignorance, demanding authenticity, clawing its way through oppressive circumstances, threatening to silence them all. As events evolved rashly around them, a storm brewing on corporate horizons, Nathan sensed they had only just embarked upon unraveling an intricate web woven tightly from deceitful practices threatening accountability, while urging them both forward into choppy waters growing steadily more turbulent. In the days following Nathan and Zoe's decision to submit the whistleblower report, the atmosphere at Velocity Innovations spiraled into turmoil. What had once felt like a thriving workplace pulsed with anxiety as employees buzzed about the growing uncertainty surrounding management's response. Tension permeated every interaction. Colleagues exchanged nervous glances, and conversations that once overflowed with laughter now carried an undercurrent of suspicion. Nathan felt the weight of his choice settle heavily on his shoulders. He had envisioned standing up for what was right, but the reality of that decision began to dawn on him with alarming clarity. He had opened Pandora's box, and while he hoped for a wave of accountability to wash over the company, he could not ignore the impending backlash that loomed ominously on the horizon. In his own world, Nathan found it difficult to concentrate. Each email notification sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. Every time management summoned staff for impromptu meetings, he felt himself teetering on the edge of panic. His fear was exacerbated by a sinking feeling that he might soon become a target of scrutiny or blame. This apprehension was confirmed when Greg, the CEO, called him into his office under the premise of discussing recent performance. "Close the door," Greg said, his voice carrying an edge that set Nathan on high alert. The room felt smaller as Nathan took a seat across from Greg's imposing desk. "You've been vocal lately," Greg began, leaning back in his chair to study Nathan with narrowed eyes. There was no warmth in Greg's demeanor. It was as if he had already determined Nathan's fate. "Yes, I believe in transparency and integrity," Nathan replied cautiously, unsure how to navigate this precarious moment. Greg's expression hardened. "Let me give you some advice," he said coolly. "Corporate loyalty is paramount here. You need to understand that stirring up trouble, not just for yourself but for your colleagues, can have serious implications." The veiled threat hung heavy in the air, and Nathan swallowed hard. He recalled Clara's earlier warnings about being careful when speaking out against authority. The encounter left Nathan shaken but also refocused his resolve. While he understood there were risks involved in exposing wrongdoing, he wouldn't falter in his commitment to integrity, no matter what personal cost it might entail. As whispers about Nathan's involvement began to circulate among his colleagues, he experienced a mix of vindication and isolation. Some admired his bravery for challenging management and risked their own careers to support him, but many others turned away, unwilling to pick sides in a battle they presumed would end badly. On social media platforms where employee discussions often flourished in anonymity, conversations began surfacing regarding potential workplace retaliation against those who dared speak up. Feeling increasingly alone yet compelled by a sense of justice, Nathan busied himself by reaching out to others who remained loyal to ethical practices within Velocity. Through hushed conversations and discreet messages exchanged at coffee breaks, he gathered support among like-minded colleagues who echoed Zoe's sentiments about fostering a culture rooted in accountability and integrity. But then another wave hit. Nathan received an anonymous email warning him against further involvement in exposing misconduct under any circumstances. The message detailed obscure threats aimed at encouraging silence. Rumors of personal repercussions if he continued down this path began swirling like storm clouds closing in around him. The escalation struck him hard. It was one thing to face professional jeopardy, but quite another for someone, likely within leadership, to leverage intimidation tactics against him. Despite these challenges weighing heavy upon him, a potent mix of moral vindication paired with isolation, he realized something transformative was occurring within both himself and those rallying around him. The act of standing firm against misconduct wasn't merely about revealing hidden truths. It was also igniting discussions that hadn't taken place before. As tension escalated further within Velocity Innovations following their whistleblowing activities, and as management scrambled to mitigate fallout, the commitment among Nathan's allies solidified into action plans aimed at supportive solidarity. Weekly meetings turned into brainstorming sessions designed not just for survival, but for making tangible changes. However daunting it felt at times facing off against powerful forces determined to maintain control through intimidation tactics employed artfully behind closed doors, Nathan recognized there would be no retreat from stepping forward into action equipped with resolve fueled by ethics, a force far greater than any threat made against them could diminish. He understood now. All these repercussions were merely ripples expanding outward from one courageous choice made amidst chaos, living its truth, unfurling well beyond individual actions, converging toward collective resilience and hope fighting against imposition meant to stifle their voices forever. As the days turned into weeks following Nathan and Zoe's whistleblower report, the fallout at Velocity Innovations spilled beyond the confines of the office, attracting media scrutiny and public outrage. News outlets quickly picked up on the scandal, framing it as a massive corporate cover-up involving misleading product testing results and potential endangerment of consumers. Headlines splashed across screens read, "Velocity Innovations' dream job turns nightmarish. Whistleblowers expose dangerous practices, and employees risk careers to uncover truths at Velocity." The reaction was swift and vehement, with social media platforms igniting into a firestorm of commentary. Consumers who once revered Velocity's innovative contributions now expressed anger and betrayal. Comments flooded in, "How can we trust a company that puts profits over safety?" And, "I'm appalled by this. I've purchased products from them." Nathan watched as the company's reputation, once pristine, began to unravel in real time, feeling both vindication and dread with every new update. As reports continued to circulate, stakeholders began to respond. Investors, once enamored with Velocity's upward trajectory, became increasingly cautious. Meetings were hastily arranged as board members analyzed the ramifications of the scandal. Some investors speculated about pulling their funding. Others questioned the integrity of upper management in light of such serious allegations. The stock price began to fluctuate ominously, a tangible reflection of the chaos unfolding within the company's image. For Nathan, witnessing this was both exhilarating and ominous. While he had hoped for accountability for the unethical practices he had uncovered, seeing it unfold in such a public manner sent waves of anxiety crashing through him. The anxiety was compounded when he received an email from Clara inviting him to a closed-door meeting with senior management, citing concerns about how Nathan's actions were impacting employee morale and company image. When he arrived at the meeting, Greg sat with a tight expression alongside other executives. "Nathan," Greg began, his voice firm yet strained, "we're facing serious backlash due to your allegations. We need you to help mitigate the situation, reassure our customers that we are taking this seriously." Conflicted by Greg's words, Nathan took a deep breath. It felt as though they were asking him to backtrack on his commitment to integrity rather than genuinely addressing the unethical practices they had allowed to fester. "I can't mislead our customers or staff," he replied firmly. "This needs transparency, not PR spin." Greg's expression darkened further. His eyes narrowed in displeasure. "You need to understand that loyalty is paramount here," he warned again, reiterating the threats Nathan had felt all too keenly since confronting management. The atmosphere was charged. Nathan could feel it. The stakes had never been higher. Meanwhile, within the broader community surrounding Velocity Innovations, supportive voices began rising alongside those of dissenters. Advocacy groups focused on corporate accountability seized upon the opportunity to amplify their messages about ethical practices in technology sectors, a movement fueled by Nathan's courage to expose misconduct. They organized protests outside Velocity's headquarters and launched campaigns encouraging consumers to demand safer practices from corporations touting innovation over integrity. Back at work, Nathan found himself at a crossroads. Although he had ignited conversations about accountability within Velocity, encouraging colleagues to speak openly about ethical concerns, the isolation he felt grew heavier as some coworkers retreated into silence out of fear for their jobs. Many praised him quietly for his bravery but avoided open confrontation when faced with management's pressure. By now, Zoe had become more than an ally. She morphed into a fierce advocate for whistleblower rights alongside Nathan as they both navigated this tumultuous landscape together. In shared moments during breaks or after hours spent discussing strategy amongst supportive peers, their commitment only strengthened. This was about more than just them. It was about fostering an environment where honesty prevailed over complacency. Despite facing repercussions, rumors swirling around his potential job security, their actions resonated far beyond their immediate workplace walls. As public attention intensified on Velocity Innovations' operations and practices, Nathan started receiving messages from former employees willing to share their experiences anonymously. They expressed gratitude for exposing truths they too had known but feared revealing themselves. While these revelations showcased the extensive impact of their whistleblower report, a ripple effect through corporate ethics discourse, it also highlighted the challenges ahead. Would they be equipped to handle backlash aimed at destroying their careers? Would they be able to transform momentum gained into sustained change within an industry often resistant to adopting accountability measures? With every passing day marked by media coverage and mounting pressure from stakeholders demanding answers or action from management regarding ongoing ethical dilemmas plaguing Velocity Innovations, it became clear that nothing would return to normalcy anytime soon. Rather than retreat into shadows cast by fear or complacency, their journey toward fostering transparent practices demanded continual courage amidst uncomfortable realities, threatening to stifle their resolve together. As the dust began to settle from the upheaval at Velocity Innovations, Nathan found himself reflecting on the tumultuous journey he had undertaken since he first stepped into what he thought was his dream job. The weeks following the scandal's exposure had been a whirlwind of emotions: fear, uncertainty, and ultimately a newfound clarity that transformed his understanding of integrity and accountability. Every day presented new challenges. As management scrambled to contain the fallout, Nathan witnessed firsthand the stark contrasts between those who remained loyal to ethical practices and those who prioritized corporate survival above all else. He had initially felt isolated, but as time passed, he recognized that he was not alone. Colleagues who once hesitated to speak out were now joining him in discussions about creating a culture of openness within the company. The simple act of standing up for what was right had ignited a movement, a powerful reminder of how one voice could echo far beyond its origins. Throughout this process, Nathan's perspective on integrity evolved significantly. Initially, he had viewed it merely as an adherence to ethical principles. Now, it embodied courage in the face of adversity and an unwavering commitment to truth, even when that truth threatened personal security. He often recalled Clara's words about integrity guiding action, realizing that it wasn't just about maintaining ideals, but also about fostering a collective responsibility among colleagues who believed in accountability. The media coverage surrounding Velocity's scandal ultimately magnified these reflections, with detailed reports detailing not only the cover-up but also highlighting stories of employees courageous enough to speak out against wrongdoing. Nathan felt an increasing sense of vindication. Articles praised whistleblowers like him and Zoe for their bravery. Public discourse shifted toward advocating for ethical practices within corporations across various industries. It seemed that their actions resonated with others beyond their immediate workplace, a ripple effect demanding accountability from organizations that professed innovation yet shied away from transparency. However, amidst this wave of public support came moments of profound discomfort too. Nathan understood that while whistleblowing could catalyze change, it also painted a target on those who dared challenge corporate misconduct. As rumors swirled and threats lingered from management seeking retribution against dissenters or scapegoats in response to mounting pressure, Nathan grappled with anxiety over job security more acutely than ever before. Yet even amid these fears, Nathan felt fortified by his convictions and supported by allies like Zoe and Clara, individuals equally committed to pushing for transformation rooted in ethics. Together they formed informal coalitions aimed at redefining workplace culture through collaborative efforts. Weekly meetings turned into brainstorming sessions focused on transparency initiatives that would bolster employee confidence moving forward. Nathan realized this journey was not merely about personal risk or gain. It represented an opportunity to reshape their organization into one where honesty prevailed over silence, a place where accountability became foundational rather than optional. As months passed since the scandal broke, Nathan began reflecting on how much he had grown personally throughout this ordeal. The initial excitement he felt upon joining Velocity had transformed into something deeper, a commitment not only to his career but also toward fostering genuine change in corporate culture founded on trust and responsibility. Each interaction with supportive colleagues reinforced his belief that many shared his vision for an ethical workplace. Moreover, his understanding of accountability shifted drastically. No longer did it represent mere compliance with rules or regulations, but transformed into cultivating a brave community willing to confront uncomfortable truths together rather than succumb to complacency or fear alone. Looking back over his journey thus far, from the naivete associated with dreaming big at Velocity Innovations to embracing moral complexities and fighting for change, Nathan recognized that true growth often requires navigating turbulent waters filled with doubt while holding tight onto principles guiding one's path ahead. As fresh challenges lay before him, both within Velocity as they sought redemption and externally in facing industry-wide calls for reform, Nathan felt prepared. He now understood that living authentically meant engaging wholeheartedly with every facet of integrity demanded as they collectively pushed toward creating not just products but values deeply anchored in ethics driving substantial progress forward. As Nathan sat on the edge of his seat in a meeting room filled with his colleagues, he felt a profound sense of purpose wash over him. The turmoil at Velocity Innovations had unraveled far more than just the company's image. It had sparked critical conversations that extended beyond its walls into the wider corporate landscape. The repercussions of his and Zoe's decision to expose wrongdoing reverberated through not only their organization but also across industries where ethical practices had long been overshadowed by profit margins and expediency. The impact of their whistleblower report was palpable. In the months that followed, discussions surrounding corporate integrity gained momentum, fueled by relentless media coverage and public scrutiny. News outlets began highlighting the importance of ethical accountability, featuring stories from former employees who had faced similar dilemmas but lacked the courage to speak up. Nathan could hardly believe how quickly things had evolved. What began as an isolated incident transformed into a national dialogue about ethics in business, a conversation he never imagined would gain traction. Outside the confines of Velocity's office, advocacy groups emerged to champion changes in legislation aimed at protecting whistleblowers against retaliation. Rallies sprouted across various cities, with slogans like "Transparency is key" emblazoned on posters carried by passionate individuals who believed that ethical practices should be non-negotiable within any corporate framework. In this way, Nathan's actions became part of a larger movement advocating for accountability, ensuring that companies could no longer hide behind polished facades while endangering public safety or well-being. For Nathan personally, this journey illuminated fundamental truths about courage and integrity. He realized that standing up against unethical practices was not simply a matter of professional responsibility but a personal calling, a belief anchored deep within him now that he couldn't have articulated before this experience. Each time he engaged in discussions with like-minded colleagues advocating for systemic change within Velocity or shared insights through public platforms regarding their experiences, Nathan felt empowered by the collective stand they were taking against complacency. Moreover, his relationships with Zoe and Clara flourished amidst adversity. While pressure from management persisted, they each found strength in one another's resolve. Weekly meetings transformed into brainstorming sessions dedicated to strategizing long-term reform initiatives aimed at fostering transparency and accountability within Velocity's operational structures, as well as broader industry standards. Together, they dissected case studies showcasing both failures and successes around ethical practices, fueling ideas that could reshape not just their company but potentially influence entire business sectors. However, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still obstacles ahead. With mounting pressure from executives eager to restore the company's reputation without truly addressing underlying issues, Nathan often wondered if genuine reform could ever take root amidst such entrenched power dynamics. Would they face pushback every step along this path? Were they prepared for further retaliation from those unwilling to relinquish control? Such questions lingered heavily in his mind during quiet moments spent reflecting on everything he had learned throughout this process. From recognizing how easily silence could perpetuate harm to understanding the importance of collaboration when tackling complex ethical challenges. His journey underscored an essential truth. Lasting change often requires grappling with discomfort and confronting inconvenient truths, both personally and collectively. They continued pushing forward toward creating meaningful reforms at Velocity Innovations. Nathan felt invigorated yet grounded in reality. He understood that every action taken toward fostering accountability represented both progress and potential sacrifice for those committed to living authentically, even when faced with powerful forces determined to uphold the status quo. Ultimately, Nathan recognized that their fight transcended individual aspirations. It signified a collective commitment to redefining what integrity looked like within corporate environments where moral courage sometimes faltered under pressure. Every interaction now became an opportunity for growth, not only personally but also in shaping narratives surrounding corporate responsibility moving forward into an evolving future demanding transparency above all else. Reflecting on these experiences filled Nathan's heart with hope. While challenges lay ahead requiring steadfast commitment from him and his allies, they were not alone nor powerless against forces attempting to silence them. Rather emboldened by knowledge gained through struggle as advocates striving for an ethical workplace environment rooted deep within shared values anchoring trust beyond mere profit.